The morning sunlight cast long shadows across Forest Lawn Memorial Park as three black SUVs pulled through the ornate iron gates. It was June 15th, exactly 16 years after Michael Jackson had been laid to rest in the Holy Terror section of the cemetery. Inside the lead vehicle sat Katherine Jackson, now 95 years old, her hands trembling slightly as she clutched a leather folder containing legal documents that had taken months to obtain. Beside her, her grandson Prince Michael Jackson stared out the window, his jaw set with determination. Nobody wanted to be here. Nobody wanted to do this. But the family had been left with no choice after a series of disturbing events that had unfolded over the past year. It had started innocuously enough, a strange letter arriving at the Jackson family compound, written in handwriting that bore an uncanny resemblance to Michael's own distinctive script. The letter contained information that nobody outside the family could possibly know, details about conversations that had taken place in the final weeks of Michael's life. At first, they dismissed it as a cool hoax, the work of some obsessed fan who had somehow pieced together fragments of private information. Then came the phone calls. Always at 3 in the morning. Always the same breathy voice singing fragments of unreleased songs. The family changed their numbers repeatedly, but somehow the calls always found them. Prince had hired the best security experts money could buy. They traced the calls to locations all over the world: London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo. But whenever authorities arrived at the source, they found only confused residents who had no knowledge of any calls being made from their phones. The final straw came 3 months ago when Blanket, Michael's youngest son, now a grown man in his 20s, woke up to find his bedroom filled with red roses, his father's favorite flower. The security footage showed nothing. No doors had been opened. No windows had been breached. The roses were simply there, arranged in a perfect circle around his bed, still wet with morning dew. Attached to one stem was a note written on aged paper. "The truth is where I sleep. Come find me before someone else does." That note had sent the family into crisis mode. After weeks of debate, arguments, and sleepless nights, they had finally agreed. The tomb had to be opened, not just for their peace of mind, but because the alternative, that someone with malicious intent might be trying to access it, was too terrifying to consider. Katherine had petitioned the court, citing security concerns and the need to verify the integrity of the crypt. The judge, moved by the family's distress and the bizarre evidence it presented, had granted permission under strict conditions. The exhumation would be private, conducted by certified professionals, and documented by a court-appointed officer. Now, as they walked through the manicured grounds toward the great mausoleum, Katherine felt her heart hammering against her ribs. The building loomed before them, its Italian Renaissance architecture gleaming white in the California sun. She had been here countless times to pay her respects, to sit in quiet contemplation before the bronze plaque that marked her son's resting place. But today was different. Today they would look beyond the plaque, beyond the marble and granite that separated the living from the dead. The cemetery director, Mr. Hawthorne, met them at the entrance. His face was grave, professional sympathy etched into every line. Behind him stood 2 forensic specialists, a structural engineer, the court officer with his camera, and 2 private security guards the family had hired. Everyone had signed extensive non-disclosure agreements. Whatever they found today would remain confidential until the family decided otherwise. They entered the mausoleum, footsteps echoing off the polished floors. The air inside was cool and still, carrying the faint scent of flowers and stone. As they approached the Holy Terrace corridor, Katherine's steps slowed. Prince took her arm, offering silent support. They turned the final corner, and there it was, the alcove where Michael had rested for 16 years, undisturbed. Also they had believed. Mr. Hawthorne cleared his throat. "Before we proceed, I need to inform you of something we discovered during our preliminary inspection yesterday." He paused, his professional composure cracking slightly. "There are marks on the seal. Fresh marks. Someone has attempted to access this crypt within the last 72 hours. The words hit the family like a physical blow. Katherine swayed, and Prince gripped her arm tighter. The security guards immediately moved forward, examining the alcove with trained eyes. Sure enough, barely visible scratches marred the edges of the bronze plaque, and there were scuff marks on the marble that hadn't been there before. "We need to open it now," Prince said, his voice tight with controlled panic. "Right now. We need to know if He couldn't finish the sentence. The thought was too horrific. The specialists moved into position, their tools ready. As they began the careful process of unsealing the crypt, a strange thing happened. The temperature in the corridor seemed to drop 10 degrees. Everyone felt it. One of the specialists paused, his breath suddenly visible in the air. Outside, though none of them could see it, the sky had begun to darken with clouds that hadn't been in any weather forecast. The seal broke with a sound like a whispered sigh. The bronze plaque was carefully removed and set aside. Beyond it lay the marble drawer that held the casket. The structural engineer checked his instruments, nodded, and gave the signal to proceed. Slowly, with infinite care, they began to slide the drawer open. Catherine closed her eyes and began to pray. In that moment, the lights in the mausoleum flickered once, twice, then steadied. Someone's phone buzzed with an incoming call. The ringtone was a Michael Jackson song that none of them had set. When they looked at the screen, it showed an incoming call from a number that was simply a string of nines. The drawer was now fully extended. The moment of truth had arrived. The casket gleamed dully in the muted light of the mausoleum, a massive, ornate piece crafted from solid bronze, exactly as a family remembered it. Its surface was adorned with elaborate designs, cherubs, and musical notes intertwined in a tribute to the man who had been called the King of Pop. But something was immediately terribly wrong. The specialists froze, their gloved hand hovering over the casket lid. Mr. Hawthorne's face had gone pale, and the court officer's camera nearly slipped from his trembling hands. "That's impossible," one of the forensic specialists whispered. "That's absolutely impossible." The casket seals, thick bands of metal that had been soldered shut 16 years ago, seals that would require industrial equipment to break, were intact, completely intact. But between those unbroken seals, someone had carved words into the bronze itself. Fresh words. The metal shavings still glinted in the crevices, proving the engravings couldn't be more than a few days old. The message spiraled around the entire casket in Michael's distinctive handwriting, the same script that had appeared on the letter sent to Catherine. Prince moved closer, reading aloud in a shaking voice. The magic was real. The curse was real. They never believed, but I became what they feared. Open this and know the truth. I never died alone. 3 souls departed that day, but only one was meant to. Find the mirror. Find the room. Find what I left behind before the darkness finds you. Catherine's knees buckled, and 2 security guards rushed to support her. "This isn't possible," she kept repeating. "This isn't possible. We watched them seal it. We were here." The structural engineer ran his detection equipment over the casket. "Mrs. Jackson, I need you to understand something. These seals have never been broken. According to every test I can run, this casket has remained sealed since the day of the funeral. But these engravings are fresh. I'd estimate no more than 72 hours old. Someone carved this message into a sealed casket without breaking seals. That defies every law of physics I know." A heavy silence fell over the group. The implications were staggering and terrifying. Either they were dealing with technology so advanced it seemed like magic, or they were facing something that couldn't be explained by conventional means. Prince pulled out his phone and photographed the engravings from every angle, his hand steady now despite the fear coursing through him. Whatever was happening, they needed documentation. They needed proof. "Open it," Catherine said suddenly, her voice stronger than it had been all day. "We didn't come here to turn back now. Whatever's in there, whatever's happening, we need to know. Michael was my son. I have a right to know the truth." The specialists exchanged glances, then nodded. They positioned themselves around the casket and began the process of breaking the seals. The sound of metal cutting through metal echoed through the corridor, a harsh screaming that seemed to go on forever. One of the security guards later swore he heard music beneath that sound, the opening notes of Thriller, playing impossibly from somewhere deep within the walls. When the final seal gave way, they paused. The lead specialist, Dr. Morrison, a woman who had worked on countless exhumations and had seen everything from ancient mummies to recently deceased victims of foul play, took a deep breath. "On the count of 3, she said. 1, 2, 3. They lifted the lid. The hydraulics hissed as a heavy bronze rose and tilted back. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed. They all stared down into the casket, trying to process what they were seeing. Michael Jackson's body was there, exactly as it should be, dressed in the pearl-beaded jacket and white glove he had been buried in. His face, preserved through mortician's art, looked peaceful, unchanged. But that wasn't what had caused everyone to freeze in horror. Clutched in his gloved hand, a hand that should have been positioned carefully across his chest, was a cell phone, a modern smartphone that hadn't existed 16 years ago. Its screen was dark, but the device was clearly recent, maybe 2 or 3 years old at most. "Dear God," Prince breathed. He reached toward the phone, but Dr. Morrison caught his wrist. "Don't. Not yet. We need to document everything exactly as it is." She nodded to the court officer, who began taking photographs, the click and flash of the camera punctuating the stunned silence. "This changes everything. This means someone has accessed this body. Recently." But Catherine was shaking her head, tears streaming down her weathered face. "Look at the seals. You said they were never broken. You said it was impossible. So how did that phone get in there? How?" Dr. Morrison had no answer. She had examined thousands of bodies in her career, had testified in countless court cases, and prided herself on her rational, scientific approach to death investigation. But this defied every rule she knew. She pulled out her own equipment and began scanning the interior of the casket, the body, everything. Her instrument confirmed what her eyes couldn't believe. There was no evidence of the casket having been opened since the original burial. The seal residue, the air quality, the degradation patterns, everything pointed to an undisturbed burial. "We need to take the phone," the court officer said. "That's evidence of something. Trespassing. Tampering. We need to turn this over to authorities." "No," Prince said firmly. "Not yet. That phone is the key to understanding what's happening. Before we involve anyone else, before this becomes a media circus, we need to know what's on it. My father built his whole life around privacy. If someone violated his final rest, if someone did this, I need to know who and why before the whole world starts picking this apart." Dr. Morrison carefully, using sterile instruments, extracted the phone from Michael's hand. The fingers released it easily, too easily, as if the hand had been holding it loosely rather than clutched in death's grip. She placed the phone in an evidence bag and handed it to Prince. "This is irregular," she said quietly, "but I understand. You have 24 hours. After that, we need to report this officially." As Dr. Morrison pulled back, she noticed something else. The interior lining of the casket, which should have been pristine white silk, was covered in writing. Thousands upon thousands of words, written in tiny, precise script, covering every inch of the fabric. Her breath caught in her throat. "There's more," she said. Everyone crowded around, peering into the casket. The writing covered the lid's interior as well, a vast document that would take hours to read. But certain phrases jumped out, illuminated by their flashlights. "The Neverland Ritual. 3 sacrifices demanded. The mirror shows a truth. They took my children's souls. The music holds a key." Prince pulled out his phone again and began photographing everything. His hands were shaking so badly now that some of the images came out blurred, but he kept shooting, desperate to capture it all. Catherine had moved away from the casket and was sitting on a nearby bench, her head in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "We need to remove him," Dr. Morrison said gently. "We need to examine the body properly, document everything. There may be more surprises." She hated using that word, but what else could she call this? This wasn't an exhumation anymore. This was something else entirely. This was an investigation into the impossible. As they prepared to carefully lift Michael's body from the casket, one of the security guards who had been standing watch at the entrance to the corridor came running up, his face ashen. "You need to see this," he gasped. "Right now. Outside." They followed him to the mausoleum entrance. Outside, the darkened sky had grown even more ominous, clouds swirling in patterns that looked almost deliberate. But that wasn't what the guard was pointing at. Across the lawn, standing perfectly still near a cluster of ancient oak trees, was a figure. A man, dressed in black, wearing a fedora that obscured his face. The distance was too great to make out details, but his posture, the way he stood with his weight slightly on one leg, hand raised as if frozen mid-gesture, it was unmistakable. "That's impossible," Prince whispered. That's my father's stance. That's exactly how he used to stand. As they watched, the figure slowly raised one hand to his hat in what seemed like a salute or acknowledgement. Then, in a movement that happened too quickly for their eyes to fully register, he was simply gone. Not running away, not walking. Gone as if he had never been there at all. The security guard who had spotted him first was already pulling up the footage from his phone where he'd been recording. They all crowded around the small screen, watching the playback. The figure appeared in the frame, stood for approximately 30 seconds, raised his hand, and then the video glitched. Just for a fraction of a second, the image distorted, and when it cleared, the figure had vanished. "Someone is playing games with us," Prince said, his fear transforming into anger. "Someone is using my father's death, his memory, to terrorize his family, and I'm going to find out who." But Catherine, looking at her grandson with eyes that had seen nearly a century of the world's mysteries and tragedies, wasn't so sure. "What if it's not a game?" she asked quietly. "What if your father was trying to tell us something in his final days? What if everything he said about magic, about curses, about things beyond our understanding, what if it was all real?" Nobody had an answer. They returned inside, and Dr. Morrison's team carefully removed Michael's body from a casket. As they lifted him, something fell from beneath him, something that had been hidden under his body the entire time. It hit the bottom of the casket with a metallic clink. Dr. Morrison reached in and pulled out a small, ornate key, the kind that might open an old-fashioned diary or jewelry box. Attached to it was a tag with an address written in that same distinctive handwriting: Neverland Ranch, Mirror Room, beneath the music. Prince took the key with trembling fingers. The message on the casket had mentioned a mirror and a room. Now they had an address. Whatever was happening, whatever impossibility they were facing, it seemed his father had left them a trail to follow. The question was whether they had the courage to see where it led. They gathered in a private room of the Jackson family compound, the phone sitting on the table like an unexploded bomb. Prince had called in Marco Delgado, one of the most respected digital forensics experts on the West Coast, a man who had worked with law enforcement on countless high-profile cases. Marco was 60 years old, a gray-bearded former FBI analyst who had seen digital evidence from every kind of crime imaginable. But when Prince explained where the phone had come from, even Marco's professional composure faltered. "You understand how insane this sounds, right?" Marco said, carefully picking up the evidence bag containing the phone. "A modern phone found in a sealed casket that's been closed for 16 years. "I was there," Prince replied quietly. "I saw the seals. I saw the casket opened. I know how insane it sounds. That's why I need you to tell me what's on this phone. Who put it there? How? And why?" Marco nodded and got to work. He photographed the phone through the evidence bag, documenting every angle, every mark. Then he carefully removed it and connected it to his laptop, using specialized equipment that would allow him to access a device without potentially triggering any security measures. The family watched in tense silence as Marco's fingers flew across his keyboard. "It's powered down, but the battery isn't dead," Marco said after several minutes. "That's interesting. Modern phones don't hold a charge for years without use. This suggests the phone was placed in the casket relatively recently, maybe within the last few months." He worked in silence for several more minutes, his expression growing increasingly puzzled. "This is strange. Very strange. The phone itself is about 2 years old, an iPhone high-end model. But the modifications, I've never seen anything like this." "What kind of modifications?" Catherine asked from her seat by the window. She had been silent since they returned from the cemetery, lost in her own thoughts and memories. "Someone has completely rebuilt the phone's operating system. It's technically an iPhone, but it's running custom software that I can't identify. And look at this." He turned his laptop so they could see the screen. "The phone has been registered under a user account. The name on the account is..." He paused, his finger hovering over the text. "The name is Michael Joseph Jackson. Birth date August 29th, 1958. The room went silent. Prince felt his blood run cold. When was the account created? Marco checked, then checked again, as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing. According to the metadata, this account was created on June 25, 2009. He looked up at the family, his face pale. That's the day Michael died. That's impossible, Prince said, but his protest sounded weak even to his own ears. They had already witnessed so many impossible things today. What was one more? Marco powered on the phone. The screen lit up, showing a simple black background with a white silhouette of a man in a fedora, Michael's iconic pose. No password request appeared. The phone simply unlocked, as if it had been waiting for them. Marco navigated to the phone's contents, and what he found made him sit back in his chair, stunned. There are 3 things on this phone, he said slowly. Just 3. A video file, an audio file, and a photo album. Nothing else. No apps, no messages, no contacts. Just these 3 files. Play the video, Prince said. His heart was hammering so hard he felt dizzy, but he needed to know. Whatever this was, whatever message had been left for them, they had come too far to turn back now. Marco opened the video file. The screen showed a dimly lit room. They recognized it immediately as Michael's bedroom at Neverland Ranch. The date stamp in the corner showed June 24th, 2009, one day before Michael's death. After a moment, Michael himself appeared in the frame. He looked exhausted, his face gaunt, his eyes haunted. He sat down on the edge of his bed and stared directly into the camera. If you're watching this, Michael's voice came through the laptop speakers, and Catherine let out a sob at the sound of her son's voice. Then I'm already gone. And if you found this where I left it, then you've opened the casket. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for what I'm about to tell you, but you need to know the truth. You need to understand what really happened to me. Michael paused, seeming to gather his strength. You all thought I was crazy in those final years. Paranoid. Delusional. Maybe I was, but not about everything. There are things in this world that exist beyond what we can see, beyond what science can explain. I discovered this at Neverland. I was trying to create a place of pure joy, a place where childhood could last forever. But I didn't realize I was building it on top of something old, something that had been waiting. He stood up and began pacing, the camera following his movement. In 1989, during construction of the main house, the workers found something, a chamber deep underground, beneath where the main hole would be built. Inside that chamber was a mirror, an ancient mirror, 8 feet tall, framed in black wood carved with symbols none of us could read. The workers wanted to destroy it or donate it to a museum, but I was fascinated. I had it installed in a secret room that I built beneath the music studio. I called it the Mirror Room. Michael stopped pacing and looked directly at the camera again. The mirror showed me things. Impossible things. At first, I thought I was dreaming or hallucinating. But the visions became clearer, more insistent. The mirror showed me the past, this land's past. Long before Neverland, before California was California, this was a sacred place. A place where a tribe performed rituals to contact what they called the first dancers, spirits that existed between life and death. The mirror was their tool, their gateway. Prince felt his skin crawl. His father's words were calm, matter-of-fact, as if he were describing something mundane rather than confessing to encounters with the supernatural. I became obsessed, Michael continued. I spent hours in that room, staring into the mirror, learning from the visions it showed me. It taught me things about music, about movement, about performance. The magic in my dancing, the way I could move like nobody else, that wasn't just practice. The mirror showed me how to move between the beats, how to dance in the spaces where time hesitates. But there was a price. He sat back down, and now they could see tears streaming down his face. The mirror demanded payment for its gifts. 3 souls for 3 wishes. I thought it was metaphorical. I thought it meant sacrificing parts of myself, my privacy, my childhood, my peace. I was wrong. In June 2009, I went to the Mirror one final time. I was preparing for my comeback shows in London. I was terrified I wouldn't be able to perform, that I was too old, too damaged, too broken. I made a deal. I asked the mirror to give me the strength to perform again, to reclaim my crown, to show the world one last time what I could do. Michael's voice dropped to a whisper. The mirror accepted, but it told me the final price had come due. 3 souls, it said. Mine would be the first. But because I had 3 children, the mirror claimed they were tied to the debt. It said that within one generation, all 3 souls would be claimed. Mine and 2 of my children's. Catherine let out a wail of anguish. Prince felt the room spinning. This couldn't be real. His father had been ill, stressed, possibly paranoid in his final days. This was a rambling of a troubled mind, not truth. But the video continued. "I know you won't believe me," Michael said, as if reading their thoughts. "I wouldn't believe me either. That's why I set this up. That's why I made arrangements that would only be discovered if someone tried to access my tomb. I knew that if the mirror was real, if what it showed me was true, then someone would come for my children. And I needed to leave evidence, a warning, a way to fight back." Michael leaned forward, his face filling the screen. "Listen carefully. The mirror's power is in music. It feeds on rhythm, on melody, on the spaces between notes. That's why I was such a successful performer. I was channeling its power, whether I knew it or not at first. But the mirror can be trapped. It can be bound. In the mirror room, hidden beneath the floorboards, I've left something. A recording. The one song I never released. The one piece of music I created specifically to counter the mirror frequency. Play it in the mirror room, and the mirror's power will be sealed. The debt will be voided." He stood up one final time. "The key you found with me will open the door to the mirror room. Go to Neverland. Find the room. Play the song. Save my children. And please, please forgive me for the things I had to do, the secrets I had to keep. I loved you all so much. More than music, more than fame, more than life itself. Don't let the mirror take any more from this family. End this. End it now." The video ended. The laptop screen went black, then returned to showing the phone's file menu. Nobody in the room moved or spoke for what felt like an eternity. Finally, Marco broke the silence. "There's still the audio file and the photos," he said quietly. Prince nodded numbly. "The audio first." Marco played it. At first, there was only silence, and then music began to play. It was unlike anything any of them had ever heard. It sounded like Michael's voice, but laid, harmonized with itself hundreds of times until it became something otherworldly. The melody was beautiful and terrible at the same time, building and building until it felt like the sound was inside their heads, vibrating through their bones. And beneath it all, a rhythm that seemed to sync with their heartbeats, making them faster, slower, faster again. Marco stopped the playback after 30 seconds. "That's enough," he gasped. "I don't know what that is, but it's affecting me physically. I can feel it in my chest." "That's the song," Catherine said softly. "That's what he created to stop the mirror." She looked at her grandson, her eyes clear and determined despite the tears on her cheeks. "We have to go to Neverland. Tonight. We have to finish what Michael started." "Grandmother, you can't seriously believe," Prince began, but she cut him off. "Open the photos," she said. "Show us what else he left." Marco navigated to the photo album. There were exactly 3 photographs. The first showed the mirror room, a small, windowless space with stone walls. In the center stood the mirror Michael had described, tall and ornate and somehow menacing even in a photograph. The second photo showed a close-up of the mirror's surface. Instead of reflecting the room, it showed an image of 3 figures standing together. Even in the blurry photograph, they could make out who the figures were: Michael, Prince, and Paris, his 3 children. The third photograph made them all gasp. It was dated June 25, 2009, taken at 2:26 p.m. The exact time, according to official records, that Michael Jackson had been pronounced dead. The photo showed the mirror again, but this time its surface was different. The reflection showed Michael lying in a bed, his eyes closed, medical personnel working frantically around him. But standing behind the medical staff, visible in the mirror but in no other reflections, was a tall figure in a dark cloak, its face hidden. One of its hands was reaching out, and wisps of something that looked like smoke or shadow were flowing from Michael's body into the figure's hand. "What the hell is that?" Marco whispered. Prince stared at the image, his entire worldview crumbling around him. He had always been the rational one, the one who dealt with facts and evidence. But he couldn't deny what he was seeing. Couldn't explain it away. "We're going to Neverland," he said finally. "We're going tonight. And we're going to find out once if all if any of this is real." The drive to Neverland Ranch took 3 hours, and they made it in complete darkness. Prince drove, his jaw set with determination, while Catherine sat beside him clutching the key they had found in the casket. In the back seat, Blanket stared out the window in silence. Paris had joined them too, flying in from New York after Prince had called her and explained everything. She sat beside Blanket, her face pale but resolute. They had all agreed, if this threat was real, if their father had been telling the truth, then they needed to face it together. Marco had wanted to come, but Prince had refused. This was family business, and if things went wrong, he didn't want anyone else caught in the consequences. He had, however, accepted Marco's parting gift, a high-end digital recorder and 3 body cameras. Document everything, Marco had insisted. Whatever you find, the world needs to see it. Prince wasn't sure about that last part, but he had accepted the equipment anyway. Neverland Ranch appeared in their headlights like a ghost from another life. The property had changed hands several times since Michael's death, but the current owner, a reclusive billionaire who had bought it as an investment, had left it largely abandoned. The famous gate stood rusted and partially open. The amusement park ride sat frozen and deteriorating. The zoo enclosures were empty and overgrown. It was a monument to forgotten joy, a place where laughter had died. They parked near the main house, and Prince distributed the body cameras. Whatever happens, he said, these cameras keep running. We stick together. Nobody goes off alone. If we find the mirror room, and if we find this recording my father talked about, we play it and we get out. We don't investigate. We don't experiment. We don't take chances. Agreed. Everyone nodded. They activated their cameras and flashlights, and then Prince used bolt cutters to break the chain on the main house's front door. The door swung open with a creak that echoed through the empty interior. Inside, their flashlight beams cut through darkness thick with dust and decay. Furniture sat covered in white sheets like sleeping giants. Photographs still hung on the walls, images of Michael with his children, with celebrities, with fans. It was like walking through a mausoleum of memories. The mirror room is beneath the music studio, Paris said, consulting the notes they had made from the video. The studio is in the west wing, past the main hall. They moved through the house in single file, their footsteps echoing off marble floors. Every shadow seemed to hold potential danger. Every creak of the old house made them jump. When they reached the music studio, they found it exactly as Michael had left it, instruments still in place, sheet music scattered across stands, recording equipment covered but recognizable. In the center of the room stood a Steinway grand piano, its black surface dulled by years of dust. Now what? Blanket asked. Where's the entrance to the room below? Catherine moved forward, her hand outstretched as if guided by instinct. She walked to the piano and ran her fingers along its underside. There was a click, and the floor beneath the piano began to descend, revealing a staircase that led down into darkness. The mechanism still worked perfectly after all these years, as if it had been waiting for them. Of course it's hidden under the piano, Paris muttered. Dad always did love his dramatic reveals. They descended carefully, the staircase spiraling down about 20 feet before opening into a small chamber. The mirror room was exactly as it had appeared in the photograph, small, maybe 15 feet square, with stone walls that looked far older than the house above. And there, dominating the space, stood the mirror. It was massive, 8 feet tall and 5 feet wide, framed in black wood so dark it seemed to absorb light. The carvings on the frame were intricate and disturbing, humanoid figures in various poses of dance and celebration, but their faces were elongated and strange, their proportions wrong. And the mirror surface, it didn't reflect normally. When they shone their flashlights at it, the light seemed to bend, to scatter, creating shifting patterns that hurt to look at directly. This is wrong, Paris whispered. Everything about this feels wrong. Catherine approached the mirror slowly. In its strained surface, her reflection appeared younger, then older, then younger again, shifting and changing as if the mirror couldn't decide what version of her to show. Michael stood here, she said softly. My baby stood in this room and made a deal with something he didn't understand. She turned to face her grandchildren, tears streaming down her face. We have to finish this. We have to end what he started. Prince was already searching the floor for the recording his father had mentioned. He found it quickly. Several of the stone floor tiles were loose. Beneath them was a small waterproof container. Inside the container was a USB drive and a handwritten note. Prince read the note aloud. This drive contains a binding song. Play it on any device with speakers. The frequency is calibrated specifically to counter the mirror's harmonic signature. Once it starts playing, don't stop it, no matter what you see or hear. The song must play all the way through. When it ends, the mirror will be sealed, its power broken. The debt will be void. You will be free. I love you all. I'm sorry I couldn't be stronger. I'm sorry I couldn't say no when it offered me everything I thought I wanted. Be braver than your father was. Be better. End this. Blanket had pulled out a portable Bluetooth speaker from his backpack. They had come prepared. Prince inserted the USB drive into his phone and connected it to the speaker. The file loaded immediately. It was labeled simply Binding Song Final Version June 24, 2009. Ready? Prince asked, his finger hovering over the play button. Before anyone could answer, the mirror's surface began to ripple like water. The reflection it showed was no longer the room they stood in. Instead, it displayed an image of a vast dark space filled with figures. The first dancers, Prince realized, the entities that had been worshipped here long before Neverland existed. They were tall and impossibly thin, their bodies moving in ways that defied anatomy, dancing to a rhythm none of the living could hear. And in the center of this dark gathering stood a figure they all recognized, Michael Jackson, or something wearing his form, dressed in his iconic red jacket from Thriller. But his face was wrong. Too smooth, too perfect, like a mask that almost but not quite captured his features. When it smiled, its teeth were too white, too sharp, too numerous. "Hello, my children," the figure said, its voice a perfect imitation of Michael's that somehow carried an echo of something ancient beneath it. "I've been waiting for you to come, waiting for you to try to break our agreement. But you can't break what's already been paid. I gave them what they wanted. I gave them my soul, and now they want the rest." "That's not my father," Catherine said firmly, though her voice shook. "My son is at peace. You're something else. Something that took advantage of him when he was vulnerable." The figure in the mirror laughed, and the sound made the stone walls vibrate. "Peace? There is no peace for those who dance with us. Play your little song if you want." Michael thought he was so clever, creating a counter-frequency, thinking he could outsmart forces older than your species. But he made one critical mistake. The song works. Yes, it will seal the mirror, break the connection, void the debt, but it requires a sacrifice of its own. To close this door, someone must remain on our side. Someone must take Michael's place in the dance. That's what he never told you. That's a secret he kept even in his confession. Prince felt his blood turn to ice. He looked down at the phone in his hand, at the play button he had been about to press. "You're lying." "Am I?" "Then play the song. Find out what happens when the frequency reaches its peak. One of you will vanish into this mirror, trapped forever in the spaces between beats, dancing for eternity with no rest, no sleep, no escape." Michael knew this. He accepted it. He planned to sacrifice himself again, to undo his first mistake. But he died before he could complete the ritual. So now the choice falls to you. Play the song and save two of Michael's children by sacrificing the third. Or walk away, let the debt stand, and all three of you will eventually join us anyway. Either way, we win. We always win. Paris stepped forward, her voice steady despite the terror in her eyes. "If what you're saying is true, if the song needs a sacrifice, then I volunteer. Take me. Leave my brothers alone." "No!" Prince and Blanket shouted simultaneously. "Someone has to," Paris said, tears streaming down her face. "If we walk away, all three of us are doomed anyway. At least this way, two of us survive. Two of us get to live. That's what Dad would want. That's why he created the song." Catherine grabbed Paris's arm. "Absolutely not. We'll find another way. There's always another way." But the figure in the mirror was laughing again. "There's no other way. This is why I love music. You know, it follows rules. Mathematical rules. Harmonic rules. You can't cheat a frequency. You can't negotiate with vibrations. The song does what it does. Physics doesn't care about your love or your hope or your desperation. Prince's mind was racing. His father had been obsessed with music theory, with the mathematics of sound. If the binding song worked on frequency, then perhaps... He looked at the mirror, at the way its surface rippled and moved. The mirror wasn't just showing images. It was resonating. It had its own frequency, its own harmonic signature. The mirror's not a door, Prince said suddenly. It's an instrument. Dad didn't create a weapon to fight it. He created a duet. The song doesn't work alone. It needs a mirror to respond. It's call and response, just like in his music. The sacrifice isn't about feeding the mirror. It's about harmonizing with it. The figure in the mirror stopped laughing. For the first time, it looked uncertain. Prince continued, his words coming fast as the pieces fell into place. Dad taught me about vocal harmonies when I was a kid. He said perfect harmony isn't about one voice overpowering another. It's about two voices finding balance, creating something that neither could do alone. The binding song doesn't destroy the mirror's power. It transforms it. And the sacrifice isn't someone disappearing into the mirror. It's someone staying in this room, conducting the harmony, maintaining the balance. You're guessing, the figure said, but its voice had lost its confidence. Maybe, Prince admitted, but my father was the greatest musical innovator of his generation. He wouldn't create something based on destruction and death. That wasn't who he was. He believed in transformation, in redemption, in magic that healed rather than harmed. So here's what I think. I think the binding song needs someone to anchor it in the physical world while it plays. Someone to stand in this room and maintain their connection to reality while the song does its work. And when it's over, that person remains. Changed maybe, connected to the mirror's frequency in some permanent way, but alive. Here, free. Catherine looked at her grandson with pride and terror mixed in her eyes. And if you're wrong, then I'll be trapped forever, Prince said simply. But I don't think I'm wrong. I think Dad left us a puzzle to solve because he knew we were smart enough to solve it. He didn't leave us a suicide mission. He left us a test. Blanket spoke up for the first time since they'd entered the room. If Prince is staying to anchor the song, then we're all staying. We're not leaving him alone down here. Agreed, Paris said immediately. The figure in the mirror was flickering now, its form becoming unstable. You don't know what you're doing, it hissed. The dance demands its price. Then let's dance, Prince said. He hit play. The binding song began to play from the portable speaker, and immediately the entire room changed. The sound was overwhelming. Michael's voice layered hundreds of times, creating harmonics that seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human ear should be able to perceive. The mirror's surface began to glow, pulsing in rhythm with the music. The figures of the first dancers appeared more clearly now, and they were indeed dancing, their impossible movements synchronized with the song's beat. Prince felt the frequency entering his body, vibrating through his bones, synchronizing with his heartbeat. It didn't hurt. Instead, it felt like he was becoming part of the music itself, like his very atoms were learning to dance. He understood now what his father had meant. This wasn't about destruction or imprisonment. It was about integration. The mirror's power came from being separate, from existing in the spaces between. The binding song brought it into harmony with the physical world, anchoring it, making it part of the natural order rather than something outside it. The song built and built, the harmonics becoming more complex, more beautiful. The figures in the mirror were changing too. The sinister, elongated shapes were softening, becoming more human, more natural. The darkness around them was lifting, being replaced by something that looked almost like starlight. And then Prince saw his father, the real Michael, not the twisted imitation. He appeared in the mirror surface, younger and healthier than Prince had ever seen him, dressed simply in jeans and a t-shirt. He was smiling, and there were tears of joy on his face. "You did it," Michael mouthed, his voice inaudible over the song, but his lips clearly readable. "You understood. You transformed the curse into a blessing. I'm so proud of you." The song reached its climax, a moment of perfect harmonic convergence where every frequency aligned, where every voice found its place in the cosmic chorus. The mirror flashed with brilliant white light, and then silence. The song ended. The mirror's surface became still, showing nothing but a normal reflection of the room. The oppressive atmosphere was gone, replaced by a feeling of peace that was almost tangible. Prince was still standing, still breathing, still himself. But he felt different, connected. He could sense the mirror's presence, could feel its energy, but it was no longer threatening. It was just there, a part of the room's architecture, no more dangerous than the stones in the walls. "Prince!" Paris rushed to him, grabbing his shoulders. "Are you okay? Are you still you?" He nodded, then smiled. "I'm fine. Better than fine. It worked. Dad's plan worked." He looked at the mirror, at his own reflection now showing clearly and normally. The mirror's sealed. Not destroyed, just pacified. It's still powerful, but its power can't be abused anymore. It can't make deals or demand sacrifices. It's just a mirror now. A very old, very strange mirror, but just a mirror. Catherine approached the mirror slowly and placed her hand on its surface. It was cool to the touch, solid, normal. Is Michael still in there? Is any part of him trapped? Prince shook his head. I don't think he was ever really trapped. I think he chose to stay connected to the mirror's frequency, to watch over it, to make sure it couldn't hurt anyone else. But now that it's sealed, he can rest. He's free. We all are. Blanket was examining the portable speaker. The song deleted itself, he said, showing them his phone screen. The file's gone. And the USB drive. He picked up the drive from where Prince had left it, and it crumbled to dust in his hand. I guess it was one-time use only. Dad thought of everything, Paris said softly. She looked around the mirror room one last time. What do we do now? Do we tell people about this place? Prince considered the question carefully. They had documented everything on their body cameras. They had proof of the impossible. But did the world need to know? Would it help anyone to learn that Michael Jackson had made a deal with ancient supernatural forces? Or would it just become another sensational story, another piece of his legacy twisted and misunderstood? We seal this room, he decided. We brick over the entrance, make it so nobody can ever come down here again. The mirror's power is broken, but it's still a doorway to something we don't fully understand. Better to leave it undisturbed. As for the evidence we've gathered, we keep it. We show Marco so he knows we're safe. But the world... He shook his head. The world has enough Michael Jackson mysteries to obsess over. This one can stay in the family. Catherine nodded approvingly. Your father would be proud. You chose wisdom over attention. That's a rare thing in our family's history. They made their way back up the stairs, back through the abandoned music studio, back to the main house. As they walked through the empty halls of Neverland one final time, Prince felt his father's presence around them, not haunting them, but watching over them with love and pride. Outside, the sky was beginning to lighten with the approach of dawn. They had been in the mirror room for hours, though it had felt like minutes. Before they left, Prince made one final decision. He walked to the famous Neverland gates and used bolt cutters to remove a small section of the decorative ironwork, a small piece with a musical note design. He would keep it, a memento of this night, a reminder of what they had overcome together. As they drove away, the sun rising behind them, none of them looked back. They had come to Neverland seeking answers, and they had found them. They had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. But more importantly, they had understood the final lesson their father had tried to teach them, that love and understanding could transform even the darkest magic into something beautiful. The secret of Michael Jackson's tomb would remain a secret. The world would never know about the phone, the mirror, the ancient forces, or the binding song. But the Jackson family would know. They would remember, and they would pass down the story through generations as a reminder that sometimes the greatest magic isn't in the supernatural at all. It's in the courage to face the unknown together and the wisdom to know when some doors should remain closed. 6 months had passed since that night at Neverland Ranch. Prince sat in his home office in Los Angeles, the piece of ironwork from the Neverland gates mounted on the wall behind his desk. He was reviewing financial documents for one of his business ventures when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Marco Delgado's name. "Marco, good to hear from you," Prince answered, leaning back in his chair. "Prince, we need to talk," Marco said, his voice tight with tension. "Something's happened. Something I think you need to know about." Prince felt his stomach clench. "What is it?" Do you remember those body camera recordings you let me review? The footage from the mirror room. Marco paused. I made a backup copy. I know you told me not to, but it's standard practice in my work. I stored it on a secure server, encrypted, protected. Nobody should have been able to access it. Should have. 3 days ago, someone hacked my server. They didn't steal anything, didn't delete anything. They left a message, a video file. It's addressed to you. Prince felt ice water flow through his veins. Send it to me. Now. Already done. Check your email. And Prince, I'm sorry. I thought I was being careful. But whoever did this, they are operating on a level I've never encountered before. They bypass security systems that should have been impossible to crack. Prince opened his email on his computer, found Marco's message, and downloaded the attached video file. His hand hesitated over the play button for just a moment before he clicked it. The video showed a dark room illuminated by a single candle. A figure sat in shadows, their face hidden by the dancing light. When they spoke, the voice was electronically distorted, impossible to identify. Hello, Prince Jackson. Don't worry, I mean you no harm. Quite the opposite. In fact, I'm reaching out because you did something remarkable 6 months ago. You solved a puzzle that has existed for over 1,000 years. The mirror at Neverland was one of 7 such artifacts scattered across the world, each created by different civilizations, each serving as a gateway for the entities you call the First Dancers. The figure leaned forward slightly, still keeping their face in shadow. You sealed one gateway. That's impressive, but it's also dangerous. Nature abhors a vacuum, and so does the supernatural world. By closing the Neverland mirror, you've increased the pressure on the other 6. They are becoming more active, more aggressive, reaching out to find new deals, new dancers, new souls to claim. Sealing one door has made the other doors swing wider. Prince felt his blood run cold. This couldn't be happening. They had solved the problem. They had ended the curse. Hadn't they? I'm not telling you this to frighten you, the figure continued. I'm telling you because you've proven yourself capable of handling these situations. Your father spent years studying the mirror, learning its secrets, but he made the mistake of trying to use its power rather than nullify it. You did what he couldn't. You transformed curse into blessing. That makes you valuable. That makes you someone who could help solve the larger problem. The figure stood up, and in the candlelight, Prince could see they were holding something, a leather-bound journal, old and worn. This belonged to your father, one of many journals he kept during his time at Neverland. This particular one details his research into the other mirrors. He discovered the locations of 3 of them before his death: London, Mumbai, and Sao Paulo. Prince's mind flashed back to the strange phone calls they had received. The ones traced the locations all over the world: London, Tokyo, Mumbai, Sao Paulo. At least 3 of those cities matched what this mysterious figure was now describing. Your father tried to warn people about the other mirrors, but nobody believed him. They thought he was paranoid, delusional, unstable. So he stopped trying to convince the world and instead left breadcrumbs for those who would eventually understand. The phone in the casket, the markings that should have been impossible, the figure in the fedora that your security cameras captured. All of it was designed to lead you exactly where you needed to go to prepare you for what's coming. The figure placed a journal on the table where the candle sat today. I'm sending this journal to you. It will arrive at your home in 3 days. Inside, you'll find your father's research, his theories, his fears. You'll find addresses, names, connections. You'll find a roadmap to the other mirrors. What you do with that information is up to you. You can ignore it. Pretend the problem doesn't exist. Hope that someone else solves it. Or you can do what your father couldn't. You can finish his work. You can seal the remaining gateways before the First Dancers claim any more souls. The figure reached toward the camera, and for just a moment before their hand blocked the lens, Prince saw their face clearly in the candlelight. His heart stopped. It was impossible, absolutely impossible, but he knew that face as well as his own. It was Michael Jackson, looking exactly as he had looked 20 years ago, young and healthy and very much alive. "Dad!" Prince whispered at his screen, but the video had ended. He sat in stunned silence, his mind racing through impossible scenarios. It couldn't have been his father. His father was dead. They had opened the casket. They had seen his body. Unless the figure who had appeared in the mirror during the ritual had been telling the truth. Not all of it, but some of it. What had it said? 3 souls departed that day, but only one was meant to. What if Michael's physical body had died, but some essence of him, some part powered by the mirror's magic, had survived? What if in sealing the mirror, they hadn't freed their father, but rather anchored him more permanently to the supernatural frequencies he had been dancing with for years? Prince's phone rang again, making him jump. This time it was Paris. "Did you just get a weird video call?" she asked without preamble. "Video message from an anonymous sender." "Yeah, you too. Blanket as well. We're comparing notes." The figure in the video, Prince, I know this sounds crazy, but it looked like... "Dad," Prince finished. "I know. I saw it too." There was silence on the line for a long moment. Finally, Paris spoke again, her voice small and scared in a way Prince hadn't heard since they were children. "What do we do?" Prince looked up at the piece of ironwork on his wall, at the musical note design that caught the afternoon light. They had faced one impossible situation and survived. They had solved their father's puzzle and freed themselves from a supernatural debt. The logical thing to do would be to ignore this new mystery, to let someone else deal with the other mirrors, to live their lives in peace. But Michael Jackson hadn't raised his children to take the easy path. He had raised them to stand up for what was right, to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, to use their privileges and resources to make the world better. And if there really were 6 more gateways out there, 6 more mirrors making deals and claiming souls, then someone needed to stop them. "We wait for the journal to arrive," Prince said finally. "We read what Dad discovered. And then we decide together, as a family, what happens next." "But Paris..." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I think we both know we're not going to walk away from this. If there are people out there making the same mistakes Dad made, if there are families about to go through what we went through, we have to try to help them. Even if it means facing more supernatural horror, more impossibilities. Especially then. Who else is going to do it? Who else would even believe it's real?" Paris was quiet for a moment. Then he heard her take a deep breath. "Okay, we wait for the journal. But, Prince, this time we do it right. We don't go alone. We don't keep secrets. We bring in experts, people who study this kind of thing, people who might actually know what they are doing. And we're careful. No more walking into haunted rooms without a backup plan." "Agreed," Prince said, though even as he spoke, he wondered if any amount of backup planning could prepare someone for the supernatural. Still, Paris was right. If they were going to do this, they needed to be smarter about it than their father had been. 3 days later, as promised, a package arrived. It was old, wrapped in brown paper that had yellowed with age, tied with string that looked like it had been purchased decades ago. There was no return address, no indication of who had sent it or how it had been mailed. It simply appeared on Prince's doorstep, as if it had always been there. Inside was a journal, exactly as the video had shown. The leather cover was soft with age, and Michael's name was embossed on the front in gold lettering that had mostly worn away. Prince opened it carefully, and his father's handwriting sprawled across the first page. "If you're reading this, then you've found the mirror room. You've played the binding song. You've done what I couldn't. You've sealed the gateway and survived. I'm proud of you, more than words can express. But I'm also sorry, because by solving one mystery, you've uncovered another. The world is full of ancient magic that humanity has forgotten. Some of that magic is benign, even beautiful. But some of it is hungry. Some of it feeds on human ambition, human desire, human weakness. The mirrors are that kind of magic. I've spent 15 years researching these artifacts, tracking their history across cultures and continents. What I've learned terrifies me. The mirrors aren't just random supernatural objects. They are parts of a system, a network created intentionally by something ancient and powerful. Each mirror is a node in that network, and together they serve a purpose I don't fully understand. But I know this. Every time someone makes a deal with a mirror, the network grows stronger. Every soul claim feeds the entities behind it all. And there's a pattern to the deals, a progression. The mirrors are preparing for something, building towards something. I tried to warn people. I tried to tell authorities, scholars, religious leaders. They all thought I was crazy. Maybe I am. Maybe years of fame and pressure and loneliness broke something in my mind. But whether I'm crazy or not, the mirrors are real. The danger is real. And someone needs to stop it before the network completes whatever it's building toward. That someone is you now. My children. My legacy. I'm sorry to burden you with this. I'm sorry I couldn't solve it myself. But I believe in you. You're stronger than I ever was, braver than I could have been. The pages that follow contain everything I learned. Use them. Save others from making my mistakes. And please, please be careful. The entities behind the mirrors don't like interference. They'll fight back. They'll try to stop you. But don't give up. The world needs people who are willing to face the darkness, even when that darkness seems impossible to defeat. The entry was dated June 24th, 2009, one day before Michael's death. Prince turned the page and found detailed maps, addresses, sketches of other mirrors, names of people Michael believed had made deals. The research was extensive, obsessive, the work of someone who had devoted himself completely to understanding a mystery that consumed him. As Prince read through the journal, he realized that his father had been preparing for this moment for years. Every strained behavior, every paranoid statement, every seemingly irrational decision, they all made sense now in the context of someone trying to fight an invisible war against supernatural forces. Michael hadn't been crazy. He had been desperate and alone, trying to solve an impossible problem while the whole world watched and judged him. "We'll finish it, Dad," Prince said quietly to the empty room. "Whatever you started, whatever you were trying to stop, we'll see it through. I promise." His phone buzzed with a text message from Paris. Journal arrived here too. Different journal. Same date. Looks like Dad left one for each of us. We need to meet. Tonight. Bring blanket and grandmother. This is bigger than we thought. Prince closed the journal carefully and placed it in his safe. Tonight they would begin planning in earnest. Tonight the Jackson family would start their father's unfinished mission to seal the remaining gateways and protect the world from the mirror's dark bargains. But as he locked his safe and prepared to leave, Prince couldn't shake the image of that figure in the video, the face that looked so much like his father's. Was it really possible that some part of Michael Jackson still existed in the spaces between life and death? Was he watching over them even now, guiding them toward their destiny? Prince didn't have answers. But he knew one thing with absolute certainty. The story that had begun with opening a tomb was far from over. It was, in fact, just beginning. The Jackson family had sealed one gateway to the supernatural world. Now they would have to find and seal 6 more, traveling to cities across the globe, facing dangers they couldn't imagine, and uncovering secrets that humanity had buried for good reason. The mirror at Neverland had been a test. They had passed, but the real challenge still lay ahead. And somewhere in the darkness, in the spaces between beats, in the frequencies that human ears couldn't quite hear, the first dancers were watching, waiting, preparing for the family that dared to challenge their ancient network. The game, as they say, was afoot, and Michael Jackson's children were about to embark on the adventure of their lives, one that would either save countless souls from eternal dancing in the dark, or claim 3 more members of the Jackson family for the supernatural forces that had already taken so much. Only time would tell which ending awaited them, but they would face it together, as family, just as their father had always taught them, because that, in the end, was the real magic. Not supernatural powers or ancient artifacts, but the unbreakable bond of love that connected them across impossible distances, even across the boundary between life and death itself. The sun set over Los Angeles as Prince left his house to meet his family. In his pocket was a key that had been found in his father's casket. In his heart was determination, and ahead of him lay a path into mysteries that would test everything he believed about reality, family, and the price of fame. Michael Jackson's tomb had been opened, and what they found had indeed terrified everyone. But more than that, it had awakened something, a purpose, a mission, a reason to be brave. The king of pop was gone, but his legacy would live on in ways nobody could have predicted. His children would dance with the darkness, just as he had, but they would do it together. And together, they might just stand a chance against forces older than civilization itself. The story, impossible as it seemed, was true. Or at least, Prince Jackson believed it was. And in a world where mirrors could make deals and songs could bind ancient evil, belief was the most powerful magic of all.